and it is very good for you guys to find out our friends' backgrounds. But on that same breath, sometimes you feel like you push it too far. Where you ask for personal information about those friends instead of basic questions. We've then
Continue.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our podcast, Redirecting Lives, where we addressing issues that affects everybody across the board. We're trying to address issues in an open and honest way so that we may create a platform out there for all parents, young adults, teens to start engaging. We need to discuss about issues. We need to address them. We need to talk about them openly so that we can reach a consensus. Here, together with me, I'm not alone. I'm embraced with a team where they will be introducing themselves quickly, and then we start with the business of the day. Over to you, Ma.
Thank you, Ma'am Chrissy. So this is Kabelo Shabalala. I'm a mother of a teen, a 16-year-old boy, and I'm looking forward to the discussions today as we unpack what our youth are really going through.
Great. Over to you.
Hi everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. My name is Tolanang Mabileta and I am 30 years old. I'm a civil engineer turned investment banker, and I'm here today in my capacity as a young adult.
Okay, great. Over to you, Ma.
Hi everyone, my name is Rugumile, and likewise, thank you for having me today. What a very interesting topic, and I think it's very relevant in these days. So I go by many hats, but today specifically, I think I'm here just as a kingdom ambassador, just to look at identity from a spiritual or rather maybe biblical perspective.
Great. It's important because He created us. Over to you, Sis.
Hi, my name's Kutlando, and here's the perspective of youth to unpack our end of this.
Okay. Guys, it is important that we include everybody. We cannot be talking about teens or talking about youth and not inviting them to be party to the discussion. Because nevertheless, we're trying to address the moral ills that are basically out there. The topic of today, it will be basically, who am I? As youth, the basis of what is happening, it's merely from a point of identifying yourself to say, who am I? Sulanang, because you are a young adult, when you were a teen, how did you navigate this issue? How did you identify yourself when you start recognizing changes, developments, basically, that you were going through?
Okay, let me just try and clarify the question, because from what I heard, there may be two streams to it. The one end was, who am I? The second part was, when I was a teen, how was I navigating the changes that I was
Yes.
going through?
Yes.
So I will start with the who am I, or rather, who was I? Because I don't think you are the same person from the day you're born to the day you die.
Yes.
I
Who were
have
you?
been many different people. I recently turned 30, and so
Oh,
my
nice.
20-year-old
Right.
version, I'm pretty sure will be different to 30-year-old me. But in terms of my teenage years, when I reflect, I was very much driven by what was I in terms of accolades. So I identified as a top 10 student. I identified as a top achiever. I identified as a very competitive, person. I identified as a debater. I identified as that girl with, multiple interests, and I was involved in almost everything at school. And
Okay,
so
great.
my identity was very much rooted in outside things in terms of my achievements. And now when you then go into the next phase, so when you're a teenager, you're mostly in high school. you get to university, and then you kind of have to start on a clean slate, because now you're not the girl in the top 10 anymore. No one knows who you are. Now you're not that girl that
Yeah.
was in the debating club or in the whatever. So now then, who am I? You have to go through sort of a rebirth where the high school version of you dies, and then this new person. In university now, I mentioned earlier, I pursued engineering studies, so I'm a qualified civil engineer. The me that had to go through that phase was a very different person as well. I identified as somewhat of a freedom fighter because of the challenges I was experiencing in university, from a racial perspective, from a gender perspective, being one of the few female engineers or engineering students in my class. So the me in that phase, also another thing, when I was in high school, I also identified as Thulanang the Virgin. Now you are outside of your parents' house. You're outside of, very proud to have matriculated as one of the few virgins in my friend group. You get to university.
Pause, guys.
That-
Wow. I just want you to note that. Did you hear that? The identification part.
Yeah.
Thulanang the what? The virgin.
Yeah.
I want you guys to highlight that in red and bold. And by that age, at that time, she had already matriculated.
Yes.
Oh, give it up to Thulanang.
Oh, wow,
Wow, that's great. But I think you were too fast. I actually wanted to know who you were during your development stage, at your earliest development stage, when you were experiencing puberty. How did you take it? Because that's when the issue of identity crisis starts. Tell us more about. Take us back to those years.
So, again, people are different. So I will not purport to speak to all teens of my generation, because even there, I identified as somewhat of a weirdo. I was very much different to other girls. My interests were also very different. I was a nerd. I was a bookworm. So when I was kind of confronted with that early on, when you go into a space, school, you spend most of your time in school, right? And you realize that you're not like the other girls or the other kids and so forth. So you then have to kind of decide that, no, I like this, I'm interested in this, and I'm going to stand up for what I like because this is how I identify. Then you wake up one day, and then suddenly you are changing. The things that used to interest you, the way you look, the way you feel in your own body, is different. Friends were a big part of that. Obviously, as a 13-year-old, as a 14-year-old, the first people that you kind of go to if you don't have sisters are your girlfriends. Like, hey, bestie, you know what? This and this happened. Did it happen to you? Did you experience the same thing? What is
Guys,
your opinion?
pause. I like it there. Did you hear, parents? The first pot of corn was the besties. It's a good thing, but we need to change that narrative. We need to go to our parents as the pot of corn, the first pot of corn. Because as your child develops, you see the changes. That's when we need to sit down with our youth, irrespective whether a boy or a girl. That's when parents need to sit down and unpack the changes that are about to happen, even before they happen, so that they are aware that, okay, maybe in the few years, I might see some development, as in breast and so forth. Postulana was at that point. Kutlano, as a teen, I'm a 2010. How did you navigate the development, the identity, to say, who are you during that phase when you were changing, when you were experiencing the changes in your life?
Well, I very much developed at a very young age. So with the boobs specifically, I blossomed, and also I had to then learn where there were certain things I could and could not do. With having to run around a lot, my boobs, because I really didn't like bras. I was young, I hated them. So now for me having to wear them all the time, for them to restrict me, make me feel uncomfortable. For then having to watch my peers, my friends play around, also made me feel really upset. Then I just sat by myself or sat with a few friends that didn't like to play, or those who weren't my friends. It helped me realize, sorry, not everybody is going to be your friend in life.
Okay.
Others will pass by, others will stay for life.
All right. So the part where you say you didn't like what was happening, the changes that you were experiencing, how did you deal with it?
I had older friends. I usually went to them.
But once again, parents, she had all the friends. So I want us to note that we are dealing with teens that go to friends as the first point of call. I think as parents, we need to blame ourselves and saying we're not doing what we should be doing optimally. So I don't know. Let's get it from Mam Shabalala. Mam Shabalala is a mother of a teen. How would you advise us? What would be the best way of addressing this? And you having a teen at home, you need to help us. Yes.
Yeah, so teens, okay, I'll speak from a perspective of my teen, right? And what I've seen. They're very secretive. They don't like you in their space. They keep to themselves. They prefer their phones, right? So when you want to get into this space, you have to learn to try to navigate yourself in. And sometimes they shy away from topics that you would wanna pursue.
Okay.
So you have to come in an angle.
So you have to have a strategy.
You have to have a strategy if you wanna be in their space. So you don't say, "Can we have a conversation?" No, they're not going to come. So you just tap on the topic when they're unaware that you're actually gunning into what you want to talk about. It's a weird. She will attest to that. Good one will attest to that. They won't let you in their space. And I think especially as a mother, because they sort of have this thing that mama, don't get into my space. They have that thing. Yeah. But fair enough, yes, as parents we really need to strive, Mama Chrissy, to change the narrative, right? Yes. Because I think us as this generation, in our 40s and our 50s, yes, we come from a background of that, of us not talking to our parents. We are from that generation. Yes. But we have to start changing the next generations and having conversations. So what I do with my son is I normally go to gym with him.
Okay,
so
nice.
So
that's a tip, parents.
So I go to gym with him, and after gym we start just talking, just general, just how was gym, how was school, who's your friend, what are you doing, because he's in a different element. He's from gym. He's not thinking my mom is trying to corner me into a conversation I don't want to have. And I spy on him. Okay, that's bad. I spy on him. So my son has a YouTube page. He doesn't know that I know. So I go.
Now the secret is out there.
So I spy. I go into the YouTube page and I look at what kind of conversations he's having with his friends. And then whenever, I'm like, oh, so this person, this ex-person you were talking about, who is she?
Oh, okay. Well.
She, so that's how I try and navigate my son. And I understand the important part. The friends come up a lot. She even said friends. Friends are a big thing.
Yes.
They are a huge thing. So one thing I also do is I want to know those friends. If you're saying you are going to the groove with whoever, I want to see who they are. Yes. I would love to know their parents. I would love to know their space. I would love to know how are they, what kind of children are they? What kind of background are they? So I do those little things, even if it's annoying. But I would say if he says I'm going to a friend for a plate, I'm like, awesome. And then I'm saying, okay, then I'll come pick you up. And then the picking him up is now being in that house, having a conversation with the parents, sussing out what kind of environment is this, checking the child, having a
lifestyle.
conversation, lifestyle, identity. I talk to the parents because I believe part of identity also comes from the parents. We live at that lifestyle of identity. Our children will sort of follow that, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying they will end up living it, but we are the ones who are the ambassadors of that identity.
Yes.
So I tap into the parents and I look at, okay, what are they? Are they Christians? Are they not? What do they believe in? How do they think? And in that way, I can navigate my son. Because I remember the other day, I actually did this. I wouldn't say what, but I did this and I went to a certain house, right? And I didn't like what I saw.
Yeah.
And a few days later, I said to my son, be aware of this that I saw in that house. If you're thinking of dating that girl, you and I will have to have a conversation.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So that's how I navigate Mama Chrissy.
Oh, that's nice, guys. Parents and youth out there, it is important that we sit down and have open discussions with our parents. It's not okay for us as parents to spy. It would be better. and I can relate. I can relate. Because as a parent, you are concerned
Yeah.
where your child is and who is she with and what are they discussing.
Yes.
But you will never know.
Not
We are
all.
very
Yeah, we
good
will
at
never know.
pretending.
Yes.
But does that not ruin the relation? That actually makes it kind of worse, especially if we find out that you are chipping in secretly, because then we feel our secret space is now broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I know that. But then remember, as a parent, and just like as Mom Shabalala has just indicated, that she had to go an extra mile to vet the family, to vet the household. What if she decided not to? And then only to realize that where the child was going, probably they do drugs. I mean, as a parent, it is our responsibility to make
Yeah.
sure, because you don't want to allow your kids to mix with kids that are doing things that are way out of line. I mean, when you do drugs, it's way out of line. It's going to destroy you. So from that aspect, I think I would implore, from my standing, I would implore Mam Shabalala to say, parents, let's rather make sure, it's just making sure.
Yeah.
There is a term that youth likes to say, make sure.
It's not make sure.
It's not make sure. They say it's not make sure. If you guys know.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ruhil,
Yeah.
tell us from a religious perspective, a
Yeah.
biblical perspective,
Yeah.
how can we navigate this issue better?
Yeah. Look, so I guess that we might be coming from different spiritual, avenues or religions, but if we're looking at it from a Christian perspective, the word is very clear, which is train up a child, in the ways of the Lord, so that when they're older, they may not depart from it, So I think just out of that, for me, what it clearly states is that foundation is very important.
Yes.
Yeah. So we start them earlier, we start them young, because remember,
Sorry, pause there. When you
yeah.
say early young, please tell us what is young, what is early.
look, I think as a parent, obviously you are the one who is seeing my child is starting, she's growing older, I can see these are developing, I'm seeing the changes and the conversations, so you've got to discern. There's a lot of wisdom and discernment that you've got to apply as a parent, as a mom, and realize, what, I think my child or my daughter or son is moving into this age where they need intentional parenting, There is a notion that, and I'm gonna say maybe Christian parents are very strict. They become unapproachable, not talkative. So it's, this is what the word says, and my way or the highway. So then that creates a wall, a kind of a wall, or a situation where you are unapproachable as a parent. Children don't want to talk to you. You are this mother who's, come Sunday, we're all going to church and you're all perfect, right? But you don't really break it down to them and building the right foundation. The Bible is clear. It says, if the foundation is not or is shaken, and I'm paraphrasing,
Yes.
What will the righteous man do? Nothing.
Yes,
So
nothing.
we really start there at the foundation, and it is when they start to grow older, you are able to sit them down and say, listen, my child, in this house, this is how we live. We are believers in so and so, we are Christians, therefore our values, principles and beliefs are founded on the word of God. And you really take it step by step, depending on their comprehension or on their ages, right? But I think what we must also be aware of or not forget is that children are very wise. They're not fools. So they watch what we do and what we say. So not necessarily what you tell them, but they observe. So as parents, who we are in the home will influence how our children behave. And I'm not saying, for all parents that the children are very rebellious. It's because the parents are rebellious. There's different other influences or factors, that could contribute to them behaving in a certain way. But if I'm just to sum it up, I think the foundations and just being intentional about parenthood.
Parent and then teaching them the right solid background.
Exactly, especially who they are. Tolana and Kugara, they all mentioned friends, right?
Yes.
So those are not just friends. They are people that they value because they love them so much. They value their opinion. They value what they have to say. If my friend says I'm not pretty, then they will take it. I'm not pretty. And after school, you just throw their books there, lock themselves in the room. They start to think that I'm not beautiful. So what must I do so I can be more beautiful, so I can be liked, so I can be accepted? When the word says, you know what, you are wonderfully and fearfully made, But if I'm just going to read it like that, oh, Kuka, you are wonderfully and fearfully made. So you need to take time and unpack and what it means. You are unique, because identity speaks to your heritage, Of course, there is the genetic makeup.
Yes.
That's the right word, but there's also the spiritual element. Our identity is in God. He made us in His image.
Yes.
I think I've covered everything. I don't know if you have any other questions.
I saw Sulana wanted to come in. That's Sulana. You wanted to come in? Yes. and I think she's saying it. Remember? She was a teen. Not long ago. So yes, Sulana, come in.
Since you touched on, I think I wanted to maybe unpack or add color to different points that you made. The first one really being about things that, like in the home, right? I think parents kind of forget that you are the one that models, but more than anything, you will do what you do, not what you say.
Absolutely.
Okay, correct.
So where you find, at least for me, this was the case where you're saying one thing, but you aren't even living up to that principle of that yourself. So why must I?
Yes.
And
But
then
hold on, wouldn't it be like rebellious, kind of?
yes, that's exactly what I'm
Okay.
throwing it back to. Remember, we're going through these changes. You're going through. We have a lot of teenagers are go through a lot. I went through a lot as a teenager, like genuine life problems. And adults, I felt like adults were minimizing what my lived experience just because I was a child. But to me, and at that point, that was my life, So those were issues that sometimes made me not want to get out of bed, and it was different things ultimately around your identity, right? Whether it's how you look. I was really chubby in primary school. Then I got to high school, and now suddenly image became a thing. And Like, boys would get close to me to get to my friends who were skinny and light-skinned and were, I was not light-skinned. So what did I do? I can't do anything much about my complexion, but definitely my weight. So I started starving myself. I had an eating disorder, actually. Throughout high school, that's something that I really struggled with, where I was starving myself. Then it got to a point where parents got involved, so I would eat to appease them and then throw up.
Can you imagine? Pause. Eat just to appease your parents, to say, I'm your good girl. But behind closed door, go to the bathroom and literally throw out everything. What does that say to us parents? Mom Shabalala, what's your take?
That hurts a lot. And especially having your child go through that alone.
Yes.
You as a parent, you actually blame yourself because you actually say that I didn't open the door for her to feel that she can come to me. As a parent, I think it hits deep. It talks to what kind of a mother am I?
You start judging yourself.
You start judging yourself.
You start beating yourself
You start
up.
beating yourself up because you are there to protect, you are there to love, you are there to open your arms, right? You're there to shield, you're here to protect. What paper. That's your role. So if your child goes through something like that, but they actually don't even want to talk to you,
It's head.
okay, that's deep.
That's deep.
That's
So
deep.
Lwana, how do we break the barrier between parents and teen? What's your take? How can parents reach out to teens so that there is no wall? So that there is no wall, we can discuss things openly and address them.
As much as it pains me to say what else that Auntie Tabilo said, but it's fair. Well, as parents, as much as they spy for good reasons, and as much as it hurts us if we find out, it is very good of you guys to do so. And it is very good for you guys to find out our friends' backgrounds. But on that same breath, sometimes you feel like you push it too far. Where you ask for personal information about those friends instead of basic questions. We then feel crowded like, so what's happening now? Is this a new convo that I really don't want to enter in?
Okay.
So
So
why not?
you feel that there's no trust. We also don't trust you. Okay, but as a parent, I hear you. But as parents, remember, we've got your best interest at heart. So we might be showing it differently, but I guess teens, youth out there, I can tell you there is no parent that can bring you to this earth and not love you. It is high time that we go back to our parents. We sit down with parents and try to close the gap. Let our parents be the first point of call if we've got issues.
My mom used to
Can
say
I
the
just
same.
say that something on that note, that psychological safety is very important. I can't be in an environment where you say to me, if I see you, and then tomorrow you expect me to come to you because now suddenly I looked at Lamar and I was like, oh, okay,
Yes.
because it rings in my mind that
But
or if your dad sees you, like my dad there are times where we'd go out and a guy would say hello or something and my father would literally be like, I have a gun, I will shoot you. So
Yeah.
so now I'm scared that if I even tell anyone, my dad's gonna catch a case or something. So
Okay.
psychological safety is also very important. As Mandhumile mentioned, intentional parenting early on. I understand today as a 30-year-old looking back that you know what? It must be very difficult as a parent because you're ultimately responsible for the actions and decisions that a whole other human being makes. And at the same time, you are a parent, you're not my friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you must strike that balance. And indeed, the things that you're doing are in my best interest. But the approach is also very much important
Okay.
in creating, giving me psychological safety, the safety to know that I'm gonna be able to come to you and you're not gonna hit me, you're not gonna freak out, you're going
gonna
to
judge you.
Yes,
I'm
you
going
are
to
a
address,
safe
we're going
place
to
for
talk,
me to
yes.
actually, even if you don't like it, but to be measured in your response. In that moment when I'm coming to you with something that shocks you, remember, I'm also mostly going, this is a new thing for the tea. I don't know better. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't even understand what's happening in my own body, in my own life.
Okay.
May
Parent,
I
yes,
chip in?
chip in.
But would that not mean race though?
Excuse me?
Would that not come into race? Where the part is where as parents now, specifically black parents, coming to you go
Well, I'm black. I've never had white parents, so I don't know how white parents do it. Yes.
But white parents, okay, the friends that I have, they're allowed to date at my age. They had no issue about it. They could come to their parents all the time. Oh, mama, I met this guy Tristan. He lives what is this? He lives by the Grove Mall. Can I see him this Friday? Is it okay? Sure.
And they're okay with it.
To the point where I've seen her where they feel the pain that their child goes through when they go through a breakup but black people don't. Those little problems that you mentioned, they don't come into them in some sensible way. It's like
Well, actually, I think it's the other way around. I think it's not like, I mean, for us to be here, our parents had to jola and like get a man and things. Yes, so they've had their hearts broken a few times.
Yeah.
They know, and I think it's a form of hyper protection.
Yes.
And it's exactly that. I don't think that there's a manual, right? On the one end, because I've been through this thing, as your sister, I can come to you and be like, listen, come and talk to me, or be careful of X, Y, and Z. So you can be proactive by saying, okay, cool, I want my child to go through all of these things in front of me so that I can control whatever, right? If my child is curious about sex, let me be the first one that they come to. So let me not ice them out. On the flip side, I think we've got the hyper protectiveness of
Yeah.
I
I need to chip in. As I heard black parents, I need to chip in.
Okay, all right.
I'm a black parent, right? And my son has dated, and I have allowed him. So I'm not that parent that's like, if you want to know, I'm not that parent.
Okay.
My parent was like that, but I'm not that parent.
Okay.
So when he started dating, he actually told me that he's got a girlfriend, and I was like, okay, why do you think it's important that you want a girlfriend at this age? And he explained, no, mama, I think I want him. I'm like, okay, you think it's okay? And he said, yeah, I think it's okay, and I allowed him.
Okay. Can I come in? At
Yes.
What age was that?
Okay, he's 16 now.
Okay.
I think he had a girlfriend when he was 14.
When it was 14.
When he was 14.
They changed. Parents. Now,
14.
listen to this. Machabalal, as a black parent, and I'm sorry to become like a bit racist, a bit, or get a black community, decided to change that, to have a discussion about dating. What that says, for the child to come back to her and say, I want to date, at that tender age, it means there was a relationship between Mam Shabalala and Wanahai.
Nah, but the way parents treat their daughters is so different to the way they treat their sons.
Thank you.
The way, as much as my parents were like that, like very hyper, those same parents were very different with my brothers. My brothers were dating, whereas now if I even look in the direction of a guy, it's like, listen, the same parents in the same household, literally.
Can I mention? Okay, I'm not as a parent,
Yeah.
but of what I've seen and what I've what I've heard, maybe it is like how a guy feels. Because as a joke, my mom used to say, or I also googled it. Girls mature a lot quicker than guys, so it's like they see themselves as kids when they see their their children.
Yeah.
So it's like when they date, it's like, oh, okay, I'm a man.
Yeah. Look, can I just add though?
Yes, yes,
and I mean, might be another huge topic in South Africa
Yes,
currently,
yes,
right?
yes.
But we cannot ignore what is currently happening with the girl child or with women in South Africa. So, you can understand why parents particularly would be more protective over a girl child versus a girl. However, that things are changing now, dynamics are changing now. Boys are being abused, boys are being, what's the term I'm looking for? When these, yeah, abducted,
Yes, yes,
molested, all of
molested,
this, yeah,
yes,
kidnapped
yes.
and everything. So,
Kidnapping,
yeah, but
human trafficking.
yes,
They also do that to boys.
absolutely, and again the obvious, no parents want to see their 14-year-old coming home with a with a big tummy and
pregnancy.
pregnant,
Okay.
still in school and all of that. Although there's a lot of grooming also that needs to happen, or rather intentional mentoring, parenting for a boy child as well. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
All right. I think
Yeah.
I hear you, Tsolanang. I think we are basically at an age where we need to treat or to raise both children, whether a girl child
Yeah.
or a boy child, the same.
Yeah.
Gone are the days when we need to treat or raise them differently. Because when we raise them differently, the notion that we are creating out there is a girl's child's place is in the kitchen. And yet a boy's child, they can do as they please. I think those are some of the issues that we need to change. We need to change that narrative. We need to
Yeah.
change how we talk to our children. We need to change how we spend time, quality time with our children,
Yeah.
based on what Tsolanang said. To say, you'd find her experience was that her father would go to the extent of saying, I would kill the boy if I dare see you next to a boy. Yet, on the other hand, the brothers, her siblings, were allowed to date, which then says it's okay, because it does not mean that boys cannot impregnate other children out there
Yeah. Of the same age.
of the
even.
same age.
Yeah.
And we are more concerned only about the girl child when they date. We're thinking about pregnancy because it's going to come and hit Mundlu. I think we need to start having an open discussion. Parents, let's use this opportunity
Yeah.
to start a conversation around this.
Yeah.
Let's have an open and honest discussions with our youth. And I must remind all parents that we're living in an age where information is out there. Our children, they've got smartphones. When they come to you and inquire about something, guarantee they already know the answer. And when you decide to shy away or you decide not to tell them the truth,
Yeah.
automatically what we're doing is we're killing the trust relationship.
Yeah.
They are no longer going to trust you. They are going to go back to their friends, to their besties, to go get information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. You mentioned something earlier, as Christine, and I think that kind of stuck with me about what we say. I think you mentioned as well the words that parents say to their children, and that can cause the biggest scars and the biggest hurt in their lives.
Yes.
And without you realizing, you have a daughter who's sitting with that with, yeah, Tamaya, we know how, something like that. Or you're so useless simply
Yes.
because the relationship between the mom and the dad did not work out,
Yeah.
So we cannot also, as parents, ignore the fact that some of the behavior of our children stems from the family, what happened.
Yes.
Is there still a relationship between the mom and the dad? If you have a boy child who's speaking into that young man's life, that
Yes.
already speaks to their identity, because there's no one in the house to model what it takes to be a man. There's no one in the house to say, this is, how we do things here. Speaks to culture, or regardless of culture actually. But and I mean, it's happening. The whole idea of a nuclear family, like how we grew up, is no longer there. You are seeing, not that it's a shame, but we are seeing women raising up children. They are successful, but a boy child does need a male figure. And I mean, we look at a lot of fatherless generations out there, boy children that are walking around with wounds because the fathers are not there. So I mean, this is such a huge topic because it speaks to also co-parenting. What happens then in a household where there's been separation, there's been divorce? What are the wounds? And many times it's painful for the mom to sit with the daughter to say, listen, me and your dad, we separated because of 1, 2, 3, and this is now how we're going to live. That little girl, there is a void on the inside of. She's already feeling my dad is gone, probably because of me. Nobody sat down with the child to say, listen, we are divorcing, and these are the reasons that led to why me and your dad are no longer together. She's already feeling wounded. She's feeling unloved, unwanted. And guess what? If in the home, she's not being validated. She's not being told that you are beautiful. You are loved. Somebody out there is going to tell her.
Yeah. Somebody out there is going to snatch.
Exactly.
Yeah, somebody's going to. And the enemy is very. I don't want to give him the credit, right? But it's those wounds that the enemy uses as tools to now start taking the child's life. Now this child, a boy is going to meet her in a mall and tell, oh, you're so beautiful. She's never had that before. Nobody has ever said to her, you are beautiful, you are smart. And guess what? Wow. Then they're exchanging numbers at night. Those are the chats. Send me your
That's how it
photos.
starts.
That's how it starts. And it may
Okay.
lead to this and that. Yeah, I
Okay.
just wanted to mention that, just maybe in wrapping up this part of my edition, is that as parents also need to take responsibility of their actions, that are impacting their children. I always say the minute you have your child, it's no longer about you. And your first calling on ministry as as
a
a
parent.
person or a parent, as a parent is your children, and as an individual person is your family, But
Yes.
many a times you find men and women, they are actively involved in church, they are CEOs, they neglecting their gold. Just like that.
Wow. Yeah, guys, whilst at that, we're taking a break, a breather. We'll be back. Hi, guys. Back again. Though we will be wrapping up, this topic is huge. We think it's just minute. It's not. It's intense because it touches so many things. It touches the void. It touches the lack of communication. It touches so many aspects. The friends that we have, that we create out there. Parents, youngsters, teen community, please, we urge you, we need to sit down. Let's use the podcast as something that, as a seed that can trigger the honest discussion. Over to you guys. We will need to close up, but then I need you to give us what would be the best practice from your perspective. I'll start by you, Kutlwano, Solanang, and I'll finish off Kamam Shabalala as a mother. Kutlwano, what do you think would be the best practice? How can we break the wall so that there is no wall between teens and adults?
Parents must be more willingly open.
Willingly open. What do you mean? Unpack it a bit when you say willingly
I
open.
must be able to come to you and say, Ma, okay, I heard my friends talking about sex. Now I heard what A, B, and C did it. What is it? How am I supposed to feel about it? You don't shy away from it, or don't sugarcoat it. Be straightforward on what it is, how I should feel about it,
Okay.
but don't be negative about it.
Okay. All right. Head guys. Okay. Solana, over to you. What do you think would be the best practice? And from your aspect, it's good because of you've been there. Now you've actually embraced a new stage. Give us the advice. Wow. That's an advice from our sister.
So, I am in a bit of an awkward or weird position where I actually understand my parents now in hindsight. As they say, hindsight as 2020 vision. And so I realized that, okay, I was always the type of person that knew that ultimately the onus was on me. I knew what I wanted for my life and for myself. So even though I was rebellious, it was not to the point where I made decisions that were going to ruin my life. But even with that being said, I understand that everything that my parents did were in, they had good intentions. The
Yeah.
execution might have been off. The execution might not have been what I preferred.
Yeah.
And
The approach.
on yes. And so
Okay.
things like I mentioned earlier, psychological safety is something that I really would have appreciated. Instead of going through my diary and yelling and things like that, you could have just create. If my parents had actually fostered an environment of actually being able to talk to me, a balance between being my friend and being a parent, that is something that I think would have changed a lot of things. But also on the teen side, I would urge all teens to, we need to have the presence of mind. You need to have the presence of mind to also remember, and sometimes it's not even just about your parents. You as an individual, what is it that you want for yourself and for your life? And to always ask yourself, are the decisions I'm making, are they taking me closer to where I want to go or further? And that's regardless of my parents, regardless of my friends. Unfortunately, you've got a lot of people turning through, so it's not something that easily comes to you.
Okay, thank you. Sister Humil. Yes.
Yeah, look, I think just in closing, I'm gonna try and be a bit soft, Yana, not really just, push the word. But I would say to both the parents and the children, the parents, give yourself grace. Remember, some of you are first-time mother. You've never walked this journey before. You've never left and know that I'm gonna have a 16-year-old who's gonna behave in this way. So forgive yourselves as well. Even where you have messed up, I think there is strength in realizing that even I, as a parent, I have missed it. And go back to your children and apologize.
Apologize.
And you'll
Guys,
see
parents, did you hear that?
Mm.
We need to swallow our pride, and if we are wrong, if we have wronged our children, go back and
Yeah.
apologize.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is actually strength in that as well. The same with the children. Give yourself grace as well. You're only living now. You didn't know what it's like. Look, for those that have siblings and they were able to see how they experience their teenagehood, adulthood, and so forth, that's actually a blessing. But if you haven't, also apologize, accept it, and move on, yeah, I think that's just what I'd like to add on. And just remember, and something that Kukrano mentioned, that willingness for parents to be open. Remember, respect. Even your parents must be open and understanding. Remember who they are. Kastswana, they say, tlhompha rre le ntate, ne gore mantsi a gago,
Yes.
malatsi a gago a
Yes.
fane mo lefatsheng. And that's the own commandment with the added blessing.
Yes.
So, yeah, remember that. And parents as well, do not provoke your children.
Oh, provoke, guys. Okay? Mama.
What a beautiful conversation. I think teens also need to know that we don't have a manual.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
We don't have a manual.
Hey, I feel better, guys. We don't have a manual.
Yeah.
Please,
There's no
if
manual
I
when it
do
comes to
mistakes,
parenthood. We receive this beautiful soul, and God just, you see it, and God says, love this person. You don't know sometimes how you navigate the love. Sometimes you might react in a way that they think you hate them.
Yeah.
but yet you love them.
But yet you love them.
Showing it differently.
Doing it differently. So as a parent, I would say, in hindsight, right, it's very important to understand the child's love language, number one. You also need to understand that your child is not you. You grew up in a certain way, you have a certain character. Like, for example, I'm an accountant by profession. My son is totally opposite. He is he is a designer. He is more with his hands. He is an influencer. He's a YouTuber. So it talks about parenting differently. And as a child, as a parent, you really need to understand your child, their makeup. Be interested in what this child is doing. Even if you don't understand YouTube and TikTok, but your child does, get into the space of YouTube and TikTok. And that way you will be able to structure those conversations that are not all about why were you with this girl.
Okay.
You know. So I think parents, let's try and learn and understand our children, know what they're about, know what they take, who do they like, what do they like doing to do. If they like to go ice skating, go ice skating.
Yes, spend time, quality
Spend quality time with the things that matter to them.
What matter to them.
Yeah.
And during that moment,
Then you hoy.
then you hold
your conversation. Yeah.
And then you find out.
Yeah.
Guys,
Amen.
you know what? Our guests, they've said a mouthful. It is important that it doesn't only end here. Let's go home. Let's practice. Let's have open discussions so that we address whatever issues that is out there to change the narrative and live a better world.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.